This is Sony's new flagship headphone, the WH-1000 XM4. And this is Sony's old flagship headphone, the XM3. Now, they've had 2 years to improve on this guy and make it even better, but the thing about the XM3s is that even 2 years later, it is still just about the best of the best when it comes to noise cancelling headphones. No one could beat it in all that time. They're just that good. Now, this comparison isn't really about which is actually better. I mean, it is, but damn, I'd be surprised if Sony took 2 years just to make a worse product. That would be crazy. But I have seen it happen before. But that's not what this video is really about though. We expect the XM4s to be better. The question is, how much better is it really? Like when it comes to everything, from sound quality, to transparency, to noise canceling, to extra features, to see if they've been improved and if they're even more now, and to just about everything about the devices, you know? Alright, let's get started. Let's talk about sound quality. By now, you should already know that the XM3s have had just about the best sound quality available. It's been this way for a while, like ever since they were released. A few headphones out there could match it, but no headphones could really seriously beat it, you know? Especially when you factor in the fact that with the Sony app, you can customize the sound just to your liking. Basically, the XM3s have been just about the best of the best when it comes to sound quality, even 2 years later. Now, how do the XM4s compare though? Or how much better are they? Well, not much. Actually, they sound pretty similar. In fact, to my ears, the XM4s sound almost exactly like the XM3s. Not exactly the same, but almost exactly the same. When I used them by themselves individually, I would have said they're exactly the same, because that's how it seemed. But to make this video, I tried them back to back to back, and I noticed there's just something different about them. So I switched between them some more. And if I could put the tiny difference into words, I'll say the XM4s sound a bit more clear. Like the sound is just a bit more crisp with them. But the XM3s just have a bit more bass. Like you can feel the boom boom booms just a bit more, you know? But even that doesn't sound so right to say, you know? Like it's really too close to call. With that being said though, the XM4s are automatically better, kind of, when it comes to sound quality. Well, at least on Android. Why? Because when you go to the Sony app on Android, you see that now, with the XM4s, even when you want to adjust the EQ settings, you don't have to switch to a lower quality Bluetooth connection mode with priority and stable connection like you had to do with the XM3s. You can make all your adjustments with the mode still set on priority on sound quality. With the XM3s, it'll always make you switch when you're using Android. With iOS though, this hasn't been a problem. You've always been able to do this. At the same time though, with iOS, Apple doesn't let you use the LDAC Bluetooth codec, which is the highest quality codec that both the XM3s and XM4s support. So you could argue that it's better to use both of them in Android, and you'll have a point. But I wouldn't worry too much or be disappointed if you just use iPhone and iOS, because even I have a very hard time telling the difference between the sounds on these codecs. And the Sony hardware is just so good past the point that I wouldn't say it matters much. Basically, sound quality is pretty comparable on both. They're very similar, and I bet you won't be able to tell much of a difference. Now, how do they sound when you pause the music though? Or how do they sound when canceling noise? And are the XM4s much better here? Well, starting with the XM3s, we know how they perform when it comes to noise canceling. Long story short, even 2 years later, they're just about the best of the best when it comes to noise canceling. Well, that is until the XM4s came out. So how do the XM4s perform compared to the XM3s? Well, long story short, the XM4s are very good at noise canceling, and they're just about the best of the best in the world, but they're still on the same exact level as the XM3s. To my ears, they cancel just about exactly the same amount of noise, not much more, not much less, and I don't think Sony changed much here when it comes to noise canceling. Now when it comes to transparency though, we already know how the XM3s are by now. They're alright, I guess. Like when you put them on the highest transparency mode or ambient sound 20, yes, you will be able to hear your surroundings and the headphones will be technically transparent, but everything will sound pretty teeny and not so loud as well. You'll definitely be able to tell that the microphones are just playing the sound from your surroundings into your ear. And it sounds more like a phone call to your environment, not like you're actually listening to it yourself with your normal ears. You switch to the XM4s though, and you see that they're much better when it comes to transparency. Everything sounds much more natural and realistic. That teeny sound isn't there anymore, and things just sound louder, and not just like sound is being played from the microphones. Okay, when you take it off, you see that it's not completely natural sounding when compared to your actual ears, and the fact that it's using a microphone will become more apparent, but it does a pretty good job overall, and it's definitely better than the XM3s. See, I want to say that's because the microphones in the XM4s are just much better than the XM3s, but I'm not sure I can actually say that. These are how the microphones in the XM3 sound, and these are how the microphones in the XM4 sound. Now, I expected to hear a significant improvement with the XM4s, but I tried them, and I found that they don't really sound so good. I think I actually prefer the sound on the XM3s.
And the XM3s don't even sound so good to begin with. So I don't know what Sony has done exactly, but you're hearing it for yourself. The XM4 microphones are still pretty bad, maybe even worse than the XM3s. That's pretty surprising and disappointing. Anyways, let's move on and talk about seamlessness.
Comfort, fit, and just general usability. This is going to be a pretty short part because they're not very different at all in this area. See, they're built exactly the same. On your head, you can't tell any difference. Actually, in your hands, you can't tell any difference either, except when you look closely and you see the XM3 say XM3 and the XM4 say XM4, and that's about it. The only improvement the XM4s have in the seamless category I've found is that they do some minor little software things in a more polished way, like with the touchpad for example. The XM3s can be abrupt at times, like when you want to increase the volume but it's already at the highest point. With the XM4s, it handles this in a more smooth and seamless way. This applies to all the little software stuff with the touchpad like this. It also applies to the entire touchpad itself. It's just a bit more responsive on the XM4s in general. Sometimes on the XM3s, you try to do something like skip to the next track, but you move your finger too fast and it just won't work the first time. You have to do it again, but slower and more robotic and intentional. Like, it's not a big deal and it's easy to get used to, but with the XM4s, you don't really have to deal with that. You can skip your track and skip the next one and skip the next one and go back to the previous one, and there will be no hassles for the most part. It's just more responsive than it is on the XM3s. I found it's still not perfectly flawless though, like not as good as phone touchscreens for example, but it is much improved. All in all though, this is about the only difference between them when it comes to seamlessness. Now when it comes to the extra features though, they do have a few differences. The XM4s basically have all the extra features the XM3s do, plus a bit more. They actually don't have the sound position controls though, that XM3s do to mess with the direction of the sound, or the surround settings to simulate different sound environments. But people didn't really use that so much, and I didn't either, but they were cool and it was nice to show off to my friends every now and then. They both have the EQ settings though, to mess with the equalizer, but I found the XM3s actually give you more range. Now some might say too much, because with the XM3s, you can really push the hardware past this limit if you want, and have the bass sound very muddy, and you can even raise everything to the point where the XM3s will basically start screeching. With the XM4s, Sony has definitely toned it down. I wasn't able to get the XM4s to do the screeching thing with the same songs as the XM3s. Now they both also have 360 reality audio, and they both give an inconsistent experience there. Basically, long story short, they have most of the same extra features. If you look on the inside ear cups on the XM3s though, you see nothing. But if you look on the inside of the XM4s, you see there's a new sensor in there. Now all the sensor really does is detect when it's on your head and around your ears, and when you take it off, it'll pause your music for you. The only other extra features the XM4s have over the XM3s are the speak to chat feature, which pauses your music and basically puts you into conversation mode automatically when it hears you speaking. It drains a lot of battery though. And the last extra feature, and the best and most practical, at least for me, is the ability to connect to two devices at once. Unlike the other extra features, this one's actually very useful. And the XM4s have this, the XM3s don't. The thing with all these extra features though is that they really eat the XM4's battery. Without the extra features the XM4s have, both it and the XM3s have pretty similar and amazing battery life. They last about 30 hours on paper, but you're gonna have a really hard time killing them in real life. And even if you do, they charge back very fast anyways. Now if you use all those extra features on the XM4s, especially speak to chat and connecting to multiple devices, the battery life will drop a great amount. I actually had to charge mine daily. It's not so bad per se, because charging daily is not that big a deal, but it's definitely a good amount worse. Okay, so now we've talked about all we need to talk about. So which is a good amount better though? Nah, let's not do that. We know the XM4s are better. I mean, it really would be embarrassing for them if they weren't, to be honest. And it wouldn't even make sense. But the question is, how much better are they? Are they a good amount better? Well, I've shown you just about all the differences and improvements in this video, and most of them were kind of minor, right? I mean, decide for yourself though, what's important to you and all. But there's not a major difference between them. But see, if you ask me what the biggest difference was between these two devices, I'll have to say it's the price. On Amazon right now as I'm making this video, the XM3s cost about $240 brand new, and the XM4s cost about $350 brand new. The prices will change over time, and there are links to both in the description below with the updated prices for whenever you're watching this, but that's over $100 difference right now. So we really do have to keep that in mind. Okay, so which device is actually better? Well, price doesn't really interfere with this, and Sony really did a great job against Sony. And the XM4s are the winners today. They're the better device. Simply put, they're just everything the XM3s are, plus more. It's really not that complicated. So that's that then, okay? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.